Also breaking at midday, Shelby County District Attorney Steve Mulroy is giving an update on Ezekiel Kelly. You may remember him. He's the man accused of going on a deadly shooting spree through the streets of Memphis back in September. Mulroy is holding a press conference right now. We're going to go live to it right here. Let's take a listen.
Convicted of one or more felonies other than the present charge, whose statutory elements involve the use of violence to the person. 2, the defendant committed, quote, mass murder, unquote, which is defined as the murder of 3 or more persons, whether committed during a single criminal episode or at different times within a 48-month period. 3, the murder was committed in the course of an act of terrorism. And 4, the murder was committed at random, and the reasons for the killing are not obvious or easily understood. This is the first death penalty notice that I have filed in my relatively short time as Shelby County District Attorney. I acknowledge that some people may have been wondering whether I would in fact take this action, given my previously stated views on capital punishment. I've made no secret of my personal opposition to the death penalty as a policy matter. If I were a legislator, I would vote against it. But as DA, I have a duty to enforce the law as it is written, whether I agree with it or not. Now, I want to be clear. I reserve the right as district attorney, as any district attorney would, to allow my understanding of the operations and the limitations of our death penalty regime to inform my judgment in individual cases, in close cases, about whether a particular case deserves the death penalty. Indeed, any DA does that, whether they admit it or not. And in fact, given the same facts and circumstances, it may be the case in close cases that different district attorneys would reach different conclusions about whether to seek the death penalty. That is one reason why we have elections for DAs. But when the case isn't close, when the facts are sufficiently clear, either one way or another, then a district attorney acting in good faith sometimes has to come to the conclusion that the facts and circumstances compel a particular decision. I believe this is one of those times. This is not a close case. The defendant is alleged to have engaged in an hours-long, apparently random murder spree, killing 3 people and wounding 3 others, and terrorizing an entire city in the process. The city of Memphis was on lockdown for several hours because of the actions, as alleged, of the defendant. Again, this is not a close case. This is a case where the facts and circumstances, in my view, compel a particular result. We have provided discovery to defense counsel, and to our understanding is they're continuing to research the case, including the background of the defendant. We will continue to cooperate with defense counsel and prosecute this case in court to see that justice is done. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions you may have.
So you said that,
Yes.
You said that you campaigned on and being kind of anti-death penalty, against the death penalty. And this kind of goes against what you campaigned on. So, and this is the first one that you have done. So in light of that, I mean, what would you say to your constituents who have voted for you as their start death penalty?
Sure. Well, the death penalty actually wasn't a major issue in the campaign. It didn't really come up all that often, but I won't reject the premise of your question. Even before the campaign, I've made no secret of my personal opposition to the death penalty as a public policy matter. Like I said before, as a legislator, I'd vote against it. But I think the people that voted for me understand that a DA has to follow the law, whether they agree with it or not. And sometimes the case isn't close. And I think this is one of those cases. I think those who voted for me would have to understand that if this case isn't death notice worthy, then no case is.
Did you discuss this with the families of the victims?
Yeah, I had staff, including a victim witness coordinator and at least one of the attorneys, contact the families of the victims, the people who had been killed, and they were aware of what I was planning to do and had no problem with what I was planning to do.
Can you give a timeline of stories when this could be brought to trial?
Well, given the number of victims, the number of witnesses, the complexity of the case, and the gravity of the case, I think it will take a fair amount of time, quite a long time indeed. I couldn't imagine this coming to trial in anything less than 6 months, and probably a lot longer than that. It may very well be that the defense, will ask for more time. We intend to, not unduly rush the case. In a case of this gravity, we need to make sure that every, a possibility of due process is being afforded to the defendant. But at the same time, I also recognize that I think the people of Shelby County would like to see this case resolved as quickly as possible, and we'll try to do precisely that.
This is a very general question, but do you think judges need to be accountable for letting dangerous criminals back out on the street?
Well, so here's the thing. The purpose of this press conference is to talk about the case today in Ezekiel Kelly. So I don't want to get involved in a lot of other issues, but I will tell you this. We are planning on doing, and Ms. Williams can give you more details later, pretty regular press conferences, like maybe once every couple of weeks, in which I'll take questions about whatever it is you want to talk about. So I'll be happy to get into it then. And also, if you want, I'll be happy to talk to you sort of offline, separately after this press conference. But I would like the press conference to focus on this relatively important matter. It's a case, obviously, of national interest, great public interest here, and as has been pointed out, this is the first time I've had to deal with this issue of whether to seek death as a remedy.
You said his priors played a role in that decision as well. Which priors are those?
Well, it's public knowledge that he has one conviction for aggravated assault, and bear with me one moment. I believe that occurred in 2021. Yes, right. So he pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in April of 2021. And, under the statutory regime, if there is a prior felony conviction for a crime of violence against the person other than the crime involved in question, that is one potential aggravating factor. And, of course, as I've indicated, that is not by any means the only aggravating factor that we allege to be present in this case.
You said that you filed notice to seek the death penalty. Did that wipe any sort of opportunity for a plea deal off the table?
Nothing we do today precludes an ultimate resolution of this case on something other than death. And that's something that will have to be considered later on down the road, as the case progresses.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The man you just heard from, that's Shelby County District Attorney General Steve Mulroy. And we want to just wrap up what he said. Now, the DA's office will be seeking the death penalty in the case of Ezekiel Kelly. Again, you may remember him. He's the man charged in that deadly shooting rampage that put the entire city of Memphis on lockdown for hours back in September. 3 people were killed and 3 others injured. We'll have more on this story tonight on Fox 13 News at 5.